Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Third year MBBS class. Hope you all students are fine. So today's topic is inflammatory bowel disease. As today's topic is a little bit lengthy, so I have divided the topic into two parts, part 1 and part 2. This is showing part. What is inflammatory bowel disease? It represents a group of intestinal disorders that cause prolonged inflammation of the digestive tract. So in inflammatory bowel disease, there is inflammation of the GIT tract or digestive tract. It is a spectrum of chronic idiopathic inflammatory condition. Ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, these two disorders occur in inflammatory bowel disease. In ulcerative colitis is a disease that causes mucosal inflammation and ulcers in the lining of the large intestine. Whereas in Crohn's disease, it is a chronic relapsing and remitting inflammatory disease of the gastrointestinal tract affecting any site from the mouth to anus. So basic difference between these two conditions, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, is that Crohn's disease affect large intestine only, whereas ulcerative colitis affect only large intestine. There is mucosal inflammation or ulcers which is formed in the lining of large intestine, whereas in Crohn's disease, these inflammatory condition occur any part of the GIT tract, affect any site from mouth to anus. And in ulcerative colitis, there is continuous inflammation. While in Crohn's disease, there is not continuous inflammation and skip areas are present. In this diagram, both conditions, Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, is shown. In Crohn's disease, mucosal inflammation is not continuous and skip areas is present. There is patchy inflammation and stricture and fissures or fistulas most often formed in Crohn's disease. Whereas ulcerative colitis, there is continuous inflammation of the GIT large intestine, and ulcerative colitis can occur only in the lining of the large intestine, and Crohn's disease can affect any part of the GIT tract. And as shown in the figure, ulcerative colitis, inflammation of the rectum is known as proctitis, and inflammation of rectum along with distal colon is called distal colitis. And when there is inflammation of whole large intestine, then it is called pancolitis. So this is the difference between these two conditions, ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And as far as ulcerative colitis is concerned, whole GIT is not involved, only large intestine is involved, and Crohn's disease can affect any part of the GIT tract. And then when rectal involvement is concerned, in ulcerative colitis, rectal involvement is most common, it is frequent, whereas Crohn's disease, rectal involvement is rare. And in inflammation is concerned, in ulcerative colitis, there is superficial inflammation and superficial ulcers are formed, while in Crohn's disease there is transmural inflammation. Skip areas are absent in ulcerative colitis. There is continuous inflammation of the large intestine, but in Crohn's disease, skip areas are present. There is patchy inflammation present in Crohn's disease. Ulcers, if present in ulcerative colitis, they are superficial, while ulcers in Crohn's disease, their ulcers are formed deep. Uh, Fissures and fistula in ulcerative colitis, there is less fissure and fistula, while in Crohn's disease, fistula and fissures and fistula formation is very common. And when histology is concerned, in ulcerative colitis, infiltration is mainly neutrophilic, while in Crohn's disease, infiltration is mainly lymphocytic, and in Crohn's disease, there is presence of granulomas, which is diagnostic. And smoking does not affect the smoking does not play any significant role in ulcerative colitis, whereas in Crohn's disease, smoking predicts a worse course. Now, the etiology of inflammatory bowel disease. Etiology involve the few agents like infectious agents, and genetic infectious agents include certain viruses and bacteria. Genetic may also play an important role in the in the formation of IBD, Environmental factors like diet and smoking may also play a part in inflammatory bowel disease. Certain psychological factors may also be involved in inflammatory bowel disease like stress or emotional or physical trauma. Now, the pathophysiology of inflammatory bowel disease. What happens in inflammatory bowel disease? In inflammatory bowel disease, there is altered mucosal immune response. Dietary and bacterial antigens penetrate into the intestinal wall and activates the immune system. This causes increased production of pro-inflammatory mediators, which will lead to inflammation of the mucosal layer. Variety of epithelial defects have been described in Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. Defects in epithelial cells will lead to influx of bacterial components such as dendritic cells and macrophages, which activate CD+4 cells. Activate CD+4 cells activate other inflammatory cells like B cells and variable T cells, and recruit more inflammatory cells by stimulation of homing receptor on leukocytes and vascular epithelium. Inflammation in inflammatory bowel disease is maintained by an influx of leukocytes vascular system into sites of active disease. This influx is promoted by expression of adhesion molecules on the surface of endothelial cells in the microvasculature in the area of inflammation. In this diagram, pathophysiology of IBD is shown. Dietary and bacterial antigens, they penetrate the intestinal wall and encounter and activate the immune system to produce inflammation. Now, the clinical manifestations of inflammatory bowel disease. Clinical manifestations are almost same in both the cases. Symptoms, which basic symptoms occur in the disease, are diarrhea, abdominal pain, which is cramping and blotting due to bowel obstruction, hematochezia, which is the blood in the stool, and patient may present with low fever, decreased appetite, weight loss and anorexia, and fatigue and arthritis. And there may be some other minor symptoms like myalgia. Now, the goals of treatment. Goals of the treatment of inflammatory bowel disease. Basically, we have to maintain or improve the quality of life of patients. We have to terminate the acute attack and induce clinical remission. We should prevent symptoms during chronic symptomatic periods. We should prevent and reduce the complication of the disease. We should use the most cost-effective drug treatment. Avoid surgery should be avoided if possible. In surgery should be done in case of severe case. Replacement of vitamin A, D, K if necessary, in case if the patient is malabsorbed and if malabsorption occur due to any reason. Now that is the diagram which shows the treatment of inflammatory bowel disease. In mild cases, the treatment should be done with aminosalicylates and antibiotics. In moderate cases, treatment should be done with corticosteroids, immunomodulators like azathioprine, methotrexate, and in severe cases, biological agents, infliximab, should be added, and further, if the disease is not controlled and there is severe IBD, then surgery should be done. Now, what is the non-pharmacological treatment of inflammatory bowel disease? To avoid the smoking, patients should be encouraged to avoid smoking, and patients should also be counseled to reduce the consumption of alcohol, to avoid the use of NSAIDs, as NSAIDs may aggravate the inflammatory bowel disease, to avoid spicy and certain fried and oily foods, and patients have to take rich fiber-rich diet, as tolerated diet include tender cooked vegetables, canned or cooked fruits, and starch like cooked cereals and whole wheat noodles. And patient should add omega-3 fatty acids in the diet. These omega-3 fatty acids have an anti-inflammatory effect, and omega-3 fatty acids are most probably found in the fish. Pharmacological treatment is concerned, the major types of drug therapy used in inflammatory bowel disease include aminosalicylates, corticosteroids, immunosuppressive agents, tumor necrosis factor inhibitor, and antimicrobials. Now the aminosalicylates, these agents have anti-inflammatory effects. They are used to maintain remission and to induce remission of mild flare of the disease. The drugs which are included in aminosalicylate are sulfasalazine and mesalamine. Sulfasalazine and mesalamine are used to treat mild to moderate disease and to maintain remission induced by corticosteroids, whereas sulfasalazine is used for ileocolonic and colonic disease. Pentasa is a recently developed sustained release preparation which is coated with ethyl cellulose that delivers 5-amino salicylic acid to the distal ileum and colon. Mesalamine, it is a first-line therapy for mild to moderate ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. 5-amino salicylic acid or mesalamine is readily absorbed from the small intestine, but its absorption is slow from colon or large intestine. So many preparations are made where the absorption is preparations are made for the purpose that absorption should be more from colon. Mechanism of action of mesalamine or 5-amino salicylic acid is various mechanisms. Is basically it helps to reduce the inflammation or inflammatory process. It inhibits synthesis of prostaglandins and inflammatory leukotrienes. It interferes with the production of inflammatory cytokines. It inhibits interleukin 1 and tumor necrosis factor. It inhibits lipooxygenase pathway, and it also helps in scavenging of free radicals. So basically these all mechanisms helps in control the or decrease the inflammatory process. Sulfasalazine Sulfasalazine contain 5-amino salicylic acid bound by an azo bond to sulfapyridine. Azo bond prevents absorption in the small stomach and small intestine. It breaks down in colon or large intestine by bacterial azoreductase enzyme. Dose of sulfasalazine which help in control of inflammatory bowel disease. For active disease, the dose should be 3 to 6 gram per day, and for maintenance dose should be 2 to 4 gram per day. Now the pharmacokinetics of sulfasalazine. 20 to 30% sulfasalazine is absorbed in the small intestine, which is excreted unchanged, and 70% reaches the colon or large intestine. Sulfasalazine splits to release 5-amino salicylic acid and sulfapyridine. It generates 400 milligram of mesalamine for every gram of parent compound. The sulfapyridine moiety is highly lipid soluble. It is completely absorbed and undergoes acetylation and glutathione conjugation. Now the adverse effects. Adverse effects of the drug is primarily due to sulfapyridine. Dose-related adverse effects include headache, fatigue, myalgia, arthralgia. Allergic reactions may occur, like rash, Stevens-Johnson syndrome, in which there is this condition of the skin, bullous-like eruptions formed on the skin. Then hepatitis and bone marrow suppression can also occur. GIT upset and nausea can also occur. And nephrotoxicity, there is the risk of interstitial nephritis. Hence, renal function should be good. Now the second generation 5-amino salicylic acid compounds. As you know that sulfasalazine contains the 5-amino salicylic acid which is attached by an azo bond to another compound which is known as sulfapyridine. And second generation 5-amino salicylic acid, they contain higher doses of mesalamine but with less side effects. Product contain the same 5-amino salicylic acid but 5-amino-salicylic acid is attached to azo bond, but in this case sulfapyridine, which is present in sulfasalazine, is replaced by another compound. In all salazine, 5-amino-salicylic acid is attached by azo bond to another 5-amino-salicylic acid, while in another preparation which is known as Bal salazite, 5-amino-salicylic acid is attached by azo bond to an inert compound which is 4-amino benzyl beta aniline, and that drug is known as Bal salazite. Now the coated drugs of amino-salicylates includes Asacol and Lialda. In Asacol, there is enteric coated form of mesalamine. 5-amino-salicylic acid is liberated at pH greater than 7. Site of release of 5-amino-salicylic acid is terminal ileum and colon. Dose is 2.4 to 4.8 gram per day in acute case and 1.6 to 4.8 gram per day in case of maintenance. Then the next preparation is Lialda. It encloses 5-amino-salicylic acid inside a lipophilic matrix with a hydrophilic matrix. It is further encapsulated by a pH-sensitive polymer which releases the drug at pH greater than 7. Dose is approximately 2.4 to 4.8 gram per day. Next preparation is Pentasa. Pentasa is the sustained release formation of 5-amino-salicylic acid, and this disintegration of capsule occurs in the stomach and the microspheres then disperse throughout the entire GIT. Ethyl cellulose coating to allow water absorption into the small beads containing the mesalamine. Water dissolves the 5-amino-salicylic acid which then diffuses out of the beads into the lumen. Now this is the sites of release of 5-amino-salicylic acid formulations. Sulfasalazine or all salazine. These preparations they transport 5-amino-salicylic acid to large intestine. So 5-amino-salicylic acid is present in sulfasalazine and all salazine. Azo bond is broken down and released in the large intestine. A drug is released. In case of other preparations like Asacol and Lialda, 5-amino-salicylic acid is released into the colon as well as in the terminal ileum. Well, then in the case of Pentasa preparation, this is Pentasa preparation, there is mesalamine delayed release capsules, and they deliver the 5-amino-salicylic acid into the whole GIT tract, likewise colon, ileum, jejunum, and some part of stomach is also shown. So it is clear, it's little bit tough that आप लोगों को ये मेरे ख्याल है कोई इस तरह का SCQ उसमें भी आया था, प्रॉफ में भी आया था कि डिफरेंट प्रिपरेशंस किस तरह की होती हैं, कहाँ कहाँ पे ये 5-amino-salicylic एसिड की डिफरेंट फॉर्मुलेशंस है. सल्फासेलाजीन, ऑल सेलाजीन जो 5-amino-salicylic एसिड के साथ एजो बॉन्ड के थ्रू अटैच होती हैं डिफरेंट कंपाउंड के साथ. सेलाजीन में 5-amino-salicylic एसिड एजो बॉन्ड के साथ सल्फापायरिडिन से अटैच होता है. ऑल सेलाजीन में 5-amino-salicylic एसिड एजो बॉन्ड के साथ दूसरे 5-amino-salicylic एसिड के साथ अटैच होता है. और ये दोनों कहाँ पे रिलीज़ करेंगी, कहाँ पे बॉन्ड टूटेगा, लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन में ये रिलीज़ करेंगी सल्फासेलाजीन और जो दूसरी प्रिपरेशंस हैं लाइक एसाकॉल और लियाल्डा, ये आप लोगों को लास्ट स्लाइड में जो भी दिखाई है उसमें बताया था ये कहाँ पे रिलीज़ करेंगी. एसाकॉल और लियाल्डा जो है वो कोटेड ड्रग्स है, ये टर्मिनल आइलियम और कोलोन में रिलीज़ करेंगी मेसालामीन. दीज आर मेसालामीन पीएच सेंसिटिव रिलीज टैबलेट्स. और पेंटेसा जो है मेसालामीन डिलेड रिलीज कैप्सूल्स, ये ऑलमोस्ट थ्रू होल जीआईटी ट्रैक्ट ये 5-amino-salicylic एसिड जो है वो अपना एक्शन शो करेंगे. ठीक है, ये डिलेड रिलीज या इनको कह सकते हैं दे आर एक्सटेंडेड रिलीज कैप्सूल्स. तो इस तरह का क्वेश्चन मेरे ख्याल में SCQ एक आया था जिसमें मुख्तलिफ डायग्राम से आपको शो करना था कि कौन कौन सी फॉर्मुलेशंस कहाँ कहाँ पे अफेक्ट शो करेंगी. ठीक है, ये नेक्स्ट इस डायग्राम में भी डिफरेंट प्रिपरेशंस दिखाई गई हैं. मेसालामीन सपोजिटरी जो अपना इफेक्ट शो करती है कहाँ तक, रेक्टम तक। ये अगर किसी को प्रोक्टाइटिस इन केस पेशेंट को है तो उसमें इफेक्टिव है। उसके बाद मेसेलामिन नीमा और स्टेरॉयड नीमा, ये अपना इफेक्ट रेक्टम से आगे थोड़ा सा डिस्टल कॉलोन तक शो कर रही हैं। और डिफरेंट प्रिपरेशंस जिसमें इसमें आपको बताया बेल सेलाजाइड, ऑल सेलाजाइड, ये डिस्टल कॉलोन और प्रॉक्सिमल कॉलोन और थोड़ा सा टर्मिनल आइलियम तक जाके अपना इफेक्ट शो कर रही है। और उसके बाद ऐसा कॉल जो है प्रिपरेशन, ये टर्मिनल आइलियम तक अपना इफेक्ट शो कर रही है। और पेंटेसा जो है वो डिलेड रिलीज या एक्सटेंडेड रिलीज प्रिपरेशन है। ये थ्रू आउट रेक्टम, डिस्टल कॉलोन, प्रॉक्सिमल कॉलोन, टर्मिनल इलियम, आइलियम, जेजुनम तक 5 अमाइनो सैलिसिलिक एसिड आहिस्ता आहिस्ता ये रिलीज कर रही है पेंटेसा प्रिपरेशन और अपना इफेक्ट शो कर रही है। दो आई थिंक दिस इज क्लियर। ये डायग्राम भी आप लोग गौर से देखें और इससे पिछली जो आपको दिखाई थी। नेक्स्ट, टॉपिकल 5 अमाइनो सैलिसिलिक एसिड। Topical 5-amino salicylic acid include Ruwasa. Mesalamine suspended in a wax matrix suppository. It is effective in active proctitis. And next preparation in Canasa. Mesalamine suspended in a suspended NEMA. It is effective in distal ulcerative colitis. Advantages of Canasa is that superior to typical hydrocortisone with 70 to 90% response rate. So almost lecture is complete. मतलब कि पार्ट 1 कंप्लीट हो चुका है। नेक्स्ट पार्ट आई विल शो यू इंशाल्लाह इन पार्ट 2। उसमें इन्फ्लेमेटरी बोल डिजीज़ का टॉपिक